My name is Eleanor Kowalski, but my whole life everyone has called me Ellie. I was a librarian for 43 years at the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, and if you have ever set foot in that building, that beautiful old Carnegie building in Oakland, with the marble floors and the tall windows and the smell of old books, then we may have met without knowing it. I am going to tell you about something that happened to me on January 19th, 2023. I am going to tell you about it because I am a librarian, and I believe that stories exist to be shared. But I also want to be upfront with you about why this particular story matters to me right now. I am 72 years old. And I know that many of you watching this are at an age where the future looks shorter than the past, where the calendar has started to feel different, where you have started to notice the fear that lives underneath ordinary days, the fear of getting older, of becoming less, of what it means when the body starts to slow down. I want to talk to you directly about that fear, because I have been to the other side and come back, and what I found there changed my relationship with my own age completely. Not in a philosophical way, not in a comfortable, reassuring, vague way, in a specific and concrete and almost surprising way. The other side has a view of human aging that is nothing like the view we have from here. But let me start at the beginning. I grew up in a Polish Catholic family in the Lawrenceville neighborhood of Pittsburgh. My parents, Zbigniew and Halina Kowalski, came from Krakow in 1968 with 2 suitcases and a determination that I could not fully appreciate until I was much older. My father worked in the steel mills until the mills closed. My mother cleaned houses until she retired at 68. They were not people who talked about their inner lives. They were people who worked and fed their children and went to Mass on Sunday and expected that this was sufficient. And in most ways they were right. I became a librarian because a library saved my life when I was 11 years old. That is not an exaggeration. My parents were good people, but they had not brought words with them from Krakow, not English ones. Our house was quiet. The Carnegie Library gave me every world I could not access at home. By the time I was 15, I had decided I wanted to be the person who handed those worlds to other children. I married a man named Frank Kowalski. Yes, I kept the K, which everyone found funny, in 1977. We had 2 sons, David and Michael. Frank died of pancreatic cancer in 2019. We had 42 years together. I do not have words for what those 42 years were, so I will simply say they were my life. After Frank died, I noticed something I had not been prepared for. I noticed that I had started to feel, old is not the right word, small, as though the future had changed character. Before Frank, the future had felt like a country I was traveling toward. After Frank, it began to feel like a narrowing, a set of years that would get harder and quieter and more diminished until they simply stopped. I want to be specific about what the fear looked like because I think many of you will recognize it. It was not dramatic fear. It was not panic. It was a quieter, more persistent thing, a tendency to count. To count the years I might have left versus the years behind me. To look at my hands, at the age spots and the prominent veins that had not been there at 40, and see subtraction instead of addition. to notice the things that were harder than they had been before, and give them too much weight. I had a friend named Connie Paolucci. We had worked together at the library for 20 years. She was the reference librarian, and she was magnificent at her job, who retired 2 years before me, and then died of a sudden aneurysm at 70. We had been planning to travel together. We had a whole itinerary for Portugal. I could not go after she died. I could not make myself go somewhere I had only ever planned to go with her. Connie's death added something to the fear, not just the grief of losing her, which was real and took a long time, but the specific fear of suddenness, of not getting to finish the itinerary, of time that runs out without warning before the things that were supposed to happen have happened. I carried that fear quietly. I did not make it the center of my days. I am a librarian. I made reading the center of my days, which is how I manage most things. But it was there. And on January 19th, 2023, it was answered. I retired from the library in 2021. I was 69. I moved to a smaller apartment in Shadyside. I saw my sons and my grandchildren on the weekends, and I read constantly, and I went to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings, and objectively I had a good life. But the fear was there, the quiet, persistent, almost polite fear of diminishment, of time running out, of becoming less. On January 19th, 2023, I was having a routine echocardiogram. My cardiologist had been monitoring a slight enlargement of my aorta for 2 years. I was lying on the table, and the technician was running the wand over my chest, and we were having a perfectly ordinary conversation about the weather, and then something inside my chest made a sound I will never forget, and everything after that happened very fast. The aorta ruptured. I coded on the table. The emergency response team arrived within 90 seconds. They worked on me for 8 minutes and 22 seconds before my heart restarted. During those 8 minutes and 22 seconds, I was somewhere else. And what I saw there transformed everything I had been quietly, politely afraid of. The first thing I want to tell you is this. The other side is not separated from this one by distance. It is separated by something more like a thin membrane, a distinction of frequency rather than space. I did not travel far to get there. I arrived immediately. One moment I was on the table in the echo lab, and the next moment I was somewhere that had always been adjacent to here, invisible from this side, but completely present. The second thing I want to tell you, because it is directly relevant to what I am about to share with you about aging, time does not work the same way there. Here, time is a line. You stand on a particular point on the line, and the past is behind you, and the future is ahead, and your age is the distance you have traveled. There, time is, I want to use the word layered, because nothing else fits. Everything exists at once. The young woman I was at 25, and the 60-year-old who packed up the house after Frank died, and the 72-year-old on the echo table, they were all equally present, equally real, equally me. I saw this, I experienced it, and it changed the thing I want to tell you about age. On this side, we experience aging as a subtraction. We lose things, mobility, sharpness, people we love, the energy we had. We lose the person we used to be. Aging from this side of the membrane looks like loss. On the other side, I saw that this is exactly backwards. Aging from that vantage point is accumulation. Every year you have lived is present in you right now, not gone. Every version of you that has ever existed is still there. Not as a memory, not as a photograph, but as a layer, as depth, as something the other side can see perfectly clearly. A 70-year-old is not a 20-year-old minus 50 years. A 70-year-old is a 20-year-old plus 50 years of everything that was learned and endured and loved and survived. I want to try to describe what I saw, knowing I will fall short. The place I was in was luminous, not bright the way sunlight is bright, but alive the way a conversation is alive, the way music is alive, full of information and presence and resonance. And the beings I encountered there, and I will not call them angels because I am a librarian, and I am reluctant to use words that come preloaded with too many associations. The beings I encountered there responded to the older among us with something I can only describe as reverence. Not pity, not patience, reverence. As though age here is the equivalent of rank or accomplishment there. As though having lived through grief and kept going, having had your body slow down and adapted to it, having buried people you loved and continued to love life anyway, as though all of that is visible from the other side as something extraordinary. Not diminishment, achievement. I thought about my mother, Halina. She had lived to 89. Her last years were hard. Her knees gave out and she used a walker, and her memory had begun to blur at the edges. From this side, those years had looked like decline. I had watched them with sadness. I had thought, here is the end, the slow subtraction, the narrowing. I saw my mother on the other side. She was luminous. Whatever weight and difficulty her final years had carried, it was not visible there. Or rather, it was visible, but it was visible as marks of honor rather than marks of loss. She had carried hard things without collapsing. She had arrived on the other side full, not empty. She saw me and she said, in Polish, which I had spoken only at home as a child and had half forgotten, she said, Eleonora, widzisz? Do you see? And I saw. I understood in a way that I cannot fully articulate in English sentences, that the years we spend here accumulating experience and loss and love and endurance are not wasted. They are not the sad conclusion of a life that peaked somewhere in the middle. They are the whole point. The older you get, the more of this experience you carry, and the more you carry, the richer you are in the place that actually lasts. I saw Frank. He looked like himself at 50, the age I had loved him best before the illness. He was not sad. He was not waiting in the way that worried me, the lonely waiting. He was fully occupied, fully present, fully himself. He looked at me with everything I had ever known in his face, and he said, "There is nothing to mourn, Ellie, not here." I also saw Connie Paolucci, my colleague and my friend, who died before we could take our Portugal trip. She was there, and she was incandescently herself. Her gestures, her particular expressiveness, the way she leaned forward when she was excited about something, all of it completely intact. She looked at me and she laughed the way she used to laugh at the reference desk when something struck her as delightful. She said, "Ellie, I am very well. Put Portugal away. There are better trips coming." I want to tell you what that meant to me. I had been grieving Connie not only as a person, but as a symbol, as proof that the calendar runs out before the itinerary is finished, as evidence for the fear of unfinished business. Seeing her there, seeing that she was not incomplete or interrupted, but fully herself and fully present, and apparently quite pleased with where she was, that specific grief released, the way a knot releases when you find the right thread to pull. Connie and I had been planning to go to Lisbon, then the Douro Valley, then Porto. We had been researching wine tours. We had a hotel booked that we had found after 3 hours of reading reviews together on a Tuesday afternoon, both of us on our phones on the reference desk between patrons. I cannot go to Portugal now without Connie, and I have not tried. But I am no longer afraid of the fact that we did not make it, because what I saw in that place made it clear that the trip was a small thing compared to what came after. And Connie is in the larger thing now, and she is entirely happy about the trade. I wanted to stay. I want to be honest about that. The desire to stay was physical, if physical is even the right word there. It was complete. I was not attached to the table in the Echo Lab or the apartment in Shadyside or any of it. What I was attached to was my grandchildren, specifically my youngest grandson, Piotrek. We named him for Frank's grandfather, a Kowalski, who came to Pittsburgh from Gdansk in 1921. Piotrek is 3 years old, and he calls me babcia, the Polish word for grandmother, and he had started to learn to read. We had been working on it together. I thought of him sitting with the board books I had given him, and I turned back. I came back to the sound of the emergency team and the smell of the Echo Lab and the ceiling tiles, which I had never noticed before, but which I noticed very clearly in the first moments back, because they were so ordinary and so specific and so perfectly, absurdly here. I had a conversation with my son David about 2 months after I came home from the hospital. David is the worrier in the family. He got it from me, which means I have no one to blame. He called me on a Sunday morning, and he asked me, carefully, whether what I had experienced had changed my understanding of his father, of Frank. I thought about how to answer that. Then I said, "It has not changed my understanding of Frank. It has changed my understanding of where Frank is. There is a difference. Your father is exactly as I understood him, methodical, kind, a little stubborn about things he was certain about. What changed is that I know he is present somewhere that I have visited, and that he is himself at his absolute best, and that whatever he wanted to say to both of us that did not get said before the heart attack in 2019, he has found the way to say it in the language of that place, where everything is said completely." David was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I think I feel him sometimes. I have felt him at important moments. When Piotrek was born, when I got the promotion at the firm, I thought I was imagining it." I said, "You were not imagining it. That is my professional opinion as someone who has been there. They told my sons what had happened. David flew in from Philadelphia. Michael drove up from Washington, D.C. They both sat in my hospital room, looking the way sons look when they have been frightened about their mother. And I held their hands, one in each of mine, and I told them I was fine. I told them I was better than fine. I told them I had seen their father. David cried. Michael, who is the quieter one, stared at the window for a long time without speaking. Then he said, "What did he look like?" "He looked like himself," I said, "like himself at his best." He said, "There is nothing to mourn." Michael nodded the way Michael nods when he is putting something away carefully, in the right place, where he can find it later. I have been home for 15 months now. Piotrek and I finished the board books and moved on to early readers. He can now get through an entire page of Elephant and Piggy without any help, and the look on his face when he does it is the look I have been living for my whole life as a librarian. The look that says, I can do something now that I could not do before. I am bigger than I was yesterday. That look is what I want to talk to you about as I close. I know that many of you watching this are at a stage of life where the world tells you that you are getting smaller. The culture we live in, especially in America, worships youth. We measure our worth in what we can still do rather than in what we have already done. We apologize for our age the way we apologize for taking up space. I want to tell you, on the authority of 8 minutes and 22 seconds on the other side, that this is exactly wrong. You are not getting smaller. You are getting larger. Every year you have survived. Every grief you have carried. Every morning you have gotten up after a night that made getting up difficult. That is all in you. That is all visible from the other side. And from the other side, a person your age does not look like someone running out of time. A person your age looks like someone who has been doing extraordinarily difficult and valuable work for a very long time, and doing it without being able to see the full picture of why it matters. You are richer than you know. Your age is your accomplishment, not your limitation. If this reached you at a moment when you needed to hear it, if you are someone who has been quietly afraid of what the coming years will look like, or if you have loved someone who is afraid, please share it with them. The link is right below this video. My mother told me to look. My husband told me there is nothing to mourn, and I am adding to that from my own 72 years of being a librarian and a wife and a mother and a grandmother, and a woman who has been on both sides of the membrane. Every story has a shape that only becomes visible when you can see the whole of it. We are still inside our stories. We cannot see the shape from here. But I have been to the place where the shape is visible, and I can tell you, it is beautiful. You are beautiful. Every year of you, every scar and every laugh line and every morning that was hard to get through. All of it, beautiful and whole, and waiting for you to see it the way it is already seen. Do not be afraid of where you are going. There is nothing waiting for you there but love, and everyone you have ever lost is already there, fully themselves, fully well, and absolutely certain that you are worth waiting for.